Well, the main thing in throwing a technical, in my opinion, is you do it in a very non-personal way. If I'm throwing it on a player, rather than looking at the player and pointing at the player or calling the player out by name or even by number, I might just come out with technical foul, just kind of generically, let that word kind of breathe a second or two. And then I might slowly turn to the desk and say number 10 blue, and then rotate. And then I immediately put my concern on getting the ball inbound. I turn to my partner and say, it's going to be ball underneath blue, and then I rotate, and I literally have this look about my face like I don't even remember I called a T. And then if the guy comes walking up on me questioning the T, I pretend like, and hopefully this is true, that I've already moved past it, and it's more about getting the ball inbound. That's really important. The other thing about a technical foul is you want to put time and space between everything you do. First of all, the incident. So let's say somebody blows up, and remember, it's not a loud question that gets a T. It's something demeaning, something dangerous or demeaning. So if that occurs, I want to hit my whistle, and because it's a volatile situation, you always want to have time and space. So you want to give yourself about 2 seconds before then you come out with your statement, and then about a second or two before you rotate, and then a second or two before you, everything you do has time and space so that everything has room to breathe, because every second that goes by, things calm down. And so you want things to breathe right. You also want to make sure on that technical that you're not right next to the guy. In fact, if you're next to him, you better rotate away before calling the T, because space is a critical component. Second technical is done the same exact way, and you almost pretend like you don't know it's the guy's second technical. So you clearly don't get more mad because the same guy's acting up again. You actually calmly assess it as if it's his first incident. Because the reality is, if you're reffing calm, you might not even remember the first one. You may calmly assess the second one. And then it's the score table or your partner that reminds you, hey, this is the guy's second. So then you might have to let them know that the player is actually ejected. But remember, the second technical isn't a buildup of wild anger. It's actually as calm as the first technical. It's the same as if you called a travel. When we're refereeing, the technical foul is a call. It's just like a travel. In fact, you can get it wrong. You just call it based on your judgment if you felt the action was demeaning. So there's a technical, you're done, it's over with, you're calm. There's another technical. Okay. So let's say that second technical is going to result in the need for that player to leave the gym. Again, time and space. So you have time and space and calmness about everything you're doing, from the incident to the whistle to reporting it to rotating to inbounding. All of that has time and space. Same thing with the second technical. The difference is, now that you've done all that, then you go into an extra element of saying number 26 has been disqualified. And you do it very calm. You don't say you're out of here and all that. In fact, you really want to be careful about sending a guy out of the gym. You want to make sure to leave the person with a certain amount of respect, because you're just calling the game. It's not personal. He's done what he's done. He's out of the game, and so on. If it's a whole nother level where it's ruining the atmosphere because he continues to cuss and scream and possibly hurt or become a danger to the game or demeaning the game beyond repair, that's when you have to continue to be calm and assess the ejection of the getting him out of the building. And that's where you calmly ask the captain, hey captain, I got to have this player leave before we resume the game. Now, that being said, time and space. So some referees like to keep the clock running, and that allows peer pressure of all the other players in the gym saying, get out of here, you're ruining our game. And it kind of works. Other referees like me, I personally like to stop the clock. That way nobody's rushing. We're not rushing this guy who's already heated. Everything's just done slow and deliberate. Even if it takes 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, even if it took 10 minutes for the guy to leave, I might calmly do that, as opposed to pointing at him and saying, get out of here, get out of here, get out of here, throwing more fuel on the flame. Think about it this way. Our job is to make sure everything's safe, the game is safe, the game's not demeaned. In that situation I just went over, where you eject a player out of the entire building, it's going to come up once a year. And you think about the loss of that 10 minutes, it's well worth it. It's well worth 10 minutes to have that entire situation go calmly, as opposed to making it worse. It doesn't mean we cater to the person that's throwing the giant fit or out of control, but at the same time we want to give that situation time and space to dissipate. You can eject a player if they get what's called a flagrant 2, or if it's the equivalent of a flagrant 2. An example of a flagrant foul is one that's, for example, dangerous or intentional. Dangerous or intentional equals a flagrant 1. The difference with the flagrant 2 is that it's dangerous and intentional. Keyword and. You're actually getting 2 technicals. A dangerous play or demeaning play or a what have you, that's one equivalent of 1 technical foul. But if you throw intent as well as this bad action, it's actually intentional, you're committing 2 violations. And that's typically called a flagrant 2, and that's a straight ejection. Now, the same holds true for example, cussing. Most people, when they cuss, it's not really totally intentional. It's a single action that results in a single T. But when a guy just thinks it through calmly and decides, I'm going to do this, and then he commits this sort of demeaning thing to the game when it's very thought out, it's very intentional, it's very disrespectful, and it's not really going to be a part of the game at all, he's just intended to ruin the event, that's considered by many referees like a flagrant 2. He's intentionally violating the rules of sportsmanship with the cussing, but not just the cussing itself, but the intent behind it is meant to just destroy the game. Here's why I think they struggle with it. They feel like there's 2 errors that occur. One is the referee feels like, hey, these guys paid money. They paid money to be here and play. And the mistake the referee is making is they did not pay money to act like that. And worst case, let's say you throw a guy out and you shouldn't have and the league reviews it. In 21 years, and we're not trying to back the officials, but in 21 years we've only had twice where the ejection wasn't right upon review, and we refunded the guy $10. Like, I would rather spend the $10 for that error than have 1,000 players over the next 3 or 4 years stay in a game they shouldn't. So first of all, they don't understand they're paying $10. That doesn't entitle them to this extreme due process situation. The second error that referees make that's pretty severe in my mind is they compare what they know about the judicial system in America, which is that you're innocent until proven guilty. And to go to jail, you have to really be proven guilty. And I tell refs all the time, this is basketball. Those are not the same standards, but a lot of refs think they are. So they won't throw the second T ejection unless they're sure that the guy's really crossed a huge line. And that's not the way basketball is supposed to be officiated. You call that the same way you would a travel. If you're pretty sure that that second thing that occurred out there was unsportsmanlike and demeaning and dangerous to the game, then you call it. You don't have to be 100% sure. You have to be pretty sure. Because if you're waiting for 100% proof, this league would be out of control because we'd never eject anybody. So you just have to have a general feeling from what you've seen, knowing refereeing and knowing the game, that what occurred was out of bounds, demeaning and dangerous to the game, and should be penalized with a T. Oh, it happens to be the second T? Well, then that's a disqualification from the game. So the referees have to divorce themselves from this concept of innocent until proven guilty. That's not the standard. If you see something, you call it, you could be wrong. Most of the time, you're going to be right. So now you're talking about a scenario past the ejection and the guy taking forever to leave, and you've tried the peer pressure, you've stopped the clock, you've done everything. The reality is that if you as a referee rotate to the 3/4 mark, meaning like not half court but far away from the benches, and you let everybody breathe and you stop that clock so that everybody's calm, you don't have players yelling and screaming at the guy to get out, he's just got his own instruction from you and a little bit of peer pressure to leave. As long as you're not egging him on and making fun of him on the way out, basically by pushing, the player should leave. If for some reason they really refuse to leave, and this happened in the 90s, probably 7 times in maybe a couple 100,000 games, you do have to tell them with your cell phone that you're going to have to call the police because this is a private event. He's been asked to leave, and he'll threaten and do this and that, but they always move. They get out then because they know that in the end you're standing there at 3/4 court politely asking them to leave. If they feel you've done the wrong thing in ejecting them, they may come back to the league and complain. I'll check with both officials, teams that had next game, both teams. All the input comes out pretty much to back the official, not on purpose, it just does. And in the event maybe the ejection wasn't right, we call the guy and say, you know what, you were out of line, the referee moved a little quick on the ejection, so your natural suspension, which should be X amount of games, we're going to cut that in half because we kind of moved a little too quick and didn't calmly execute our second technical. So that's your worst case scenario. In other words, you just remain calm, do the best you can. Worst case, you pick up a phone and you call the police. But it's probably happened once in the last 10 years. You should report an ejection to the league, especially if you feel that that situation might present itself again. If it's a one and done and it really didn't present danger to the game or to opponents, and the person took the second technical, accepted it, changed on the spot, you could see a change in demeanor, and received their penalty, some refs have let that go. For the most part, it's safer to report it, because if we see a pattern with that same player, of course, we want to know, because we don't want players ruining games for all the people who paid to have a good game.